The U.S. insistence on hampering efforts towards reconciliation between the two Koreas has prompted the South to act as a mediator between Pyongyang and Washington. South Korea says North Korea is willing to hold talks with the United States. Seoul also says Pyongyang agrees that talks between the two Koreas and the U.S.-North relations should improve together.
Sanctions alone are not going to solve this crisis. Sanctions are a tool in our toolkit, but we need to get to the negotiating table in order to leverage those sanctions into some sort of arrangement that halts and then reverses North Korea's nuclear and missile progress.
Earlier, North Korea said it will regard any maritime blockade of the country by the U.S. as an act of war. Pyongyang said Washington's sanctions on the North will undermine efforts to improve relations between the two Koreas. Such unilateral moves by the U.S. made matters worse. The moves are notoriously blamed by many countries for being the real source of tensions on the Korean peninsula.
Well, I think that it's certainly going to make a lot of people unhappy. I mean, a lot of people do want a relatively peaceful situation on the peninsula. There's a great deal of room for negotiations inside the country, but the United States seems intent on destroying these negotiations at every turn that they get. Their real goal is to try to destroy the DPRK in general.
U.S. President Donald Trump has on numerous occasions engaged in a war of words with North Korea since January 2016, when he took office. This he has done through making statements in speeches or via Twitter, his cyber tool of choice to hammer his adversaries. He has even made veiled threats of war against the North. North Korea has responded in kind by making threats of missile attacks on the U.S. mainland. Pyongyang has also conducted a number of intercontinental ballistic missile tests to prove its capability to launch an attack. North Korea's toughness on Trump has paid off, forcing him to tone down his rhetoric.
Well, I think there's a very good chance that the United States is just trying to sabotage the DPRK. It seems like that's the one relic left over from the Cold War that has not yet been solved. The determination of the DPRK has been to maintain their own independence. They are one of the few countries left that has remained a stalwart defender of anti-imperialism around the world, and has been a great supporter in assisting others to achieve those same ends.
Recently, a high-level North Korean delegation met with South Korean President Moon Jae-in in the south. The delegation was there to attend the closing ceremony of the Winter Olympic Games. What analysts call sports diplomacy have helped ease tensions between the two Koreas. But it's unlikely that it will completely solve the crisis on the Korean peninsula. This has been blamed on the U.S., which stands accused of hampering efforts by the two Koreas to reconcile.
The major problem with diplomacy is that fundamentals are not changing. And the major problem is not between North and South Korea. The major problem is between North Korea and the United States. Therefore, no amount of talks between North and South Korea is going to change anything significantly.
If they manage to bury the hatchet for good, the U.S. will become almost irrelevant in the region. Only after North Korea has given up its nuclear arms and missiles will the U.S. agree to reconciliation between the two Koreas. The North considers itself a nuclear power and will not accept this, as it may expose the country to a foreign invasion.
They see their nuclear weapons program as a guarantee of their security against what they fear, which is an American military attack. So this is the highest priority for them. They are going to be willing to take economic pain. They're going to be willing to sacrifice economic activity in order to maintain their nuclear program and to conduct perhaps more ballistic missile tests to begin to deploy long-range nuclear-armed interceptors later this year.